She didn't scream when the slap landed. That was the strange part. She just stood there, hand to her cheek, her son clinging to her coat, while the woman in the designer heels turned on those red soles like she'd just stepped off a catwalk, untouchable, above consequence. But that's the thing about consequences. They show up when you least expect them. And sometimes, they wear a $50,000 watch and own the parking lot you think you rule. You ever witness something so jarring, so fundamentally unfair, that it makes your heart knock hard in your chest before your brain even catches up? That's what happened that Tuesday afternoon. And if you're the kind of person who believes dignity matters more than dollars, or that bullies, no matter how rich, eventually meet their reckoning, then go ahead and like this video, and subscribe for more stories where karma takes center stage. Because what happened to Sarah and Wynn that day wasn't just about a slap. It was about power, pride, and a truth no one saw coming. It started in the valet circle of the Palisade Row Galleria, an elite open-air mall in Los Angeles with boutiques so high-end they don't even list prices. The kind of place where the parking lot smells like imported leather and ego. I was sitting at the cafe across the courtyard, just finishing an overpriced cappuccino when I first noticed her. A young woman, plain at first glance, standing at the edge of the valet zone with a toddler balanced on her hip and an overstuffed diaper bag slipping from her shoulder. Her coat was faded at the cuffs, shoes scuffed with wear. She didn't belong there, and not because she wasn't welcome, because she looked like she knew she didn't belong. The little boy pointed with glee at a green Lamborghini Aventador parked right out front, gleaming under the afternoon sun like some alien spacecraft. "Mama, look," he squealed, wiggling in her arms. I saw the woman smile, tight, exhausted, and shift him to her other side. She glanced toward the restaurant patio, likely trying to find someone. Instead, she took 2 cautious steps forward, reached out, and placed her fingertips on the curve of the hood, just for a second. Nothing disrespectful, just wonder. Maybe y'all. That's when she appeared. I hadn't noticed the woman before. She came from the same restaurant I'd been watching. Celeste Moreau, heiress to the Moreau fashion empire, dripping in diamonds and self-importance. Towering in crimson stilettos, white trench coat fluttering dramatically behind her, she stormed out of the glass doors with a phone in one manicured hand and venom in her voice. "Get your peasant hands off my car," she screeched. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. I saw Sarah freeze, hand still hovering near the Lamborghini. Her son clutched her coat tighter. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was." But Celeste didn't let her finish. Before I, or anyone, could intervene, she marched up, pulled back, and slapped the woman across the face. The sound cracked across the marble stone circle like a gunshot. Sarah stumbled a step back, stunned, cheek already blooming red. The boy burst into tears, burying his face in her neck. "People like you shouldn't even be near cars like this," Celeste hissed. "You want to touch something expensive? Try working for it first." The crowd didn't gasp. That's the chilling part. They just watched. Like a reality show. Some even filmed it. No one moved to help. I stood up halfway, unsure what good I could do, but then something shifted. A man, previously just a silhouette leaning against the second-floor railing, descended the staircase slowly, his tailored coat billowing slightly as he moved. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He simply walked with the quiet intensity of someone who didn't need to raise his voice to own the room. Or, in this case, the plaza. At first, no one noticed him. Celeste was too busy pulling out a silk handkerchief to wipe the smudge from her car's paint. But the valet noticed. He straightened as the man approached. Then he held out a key fob with 2 hands and said, "Mr. Wolf, your car." I'll never forget Celeste's face when she turned around and saw him. Eyes wide, lips parted, like someone just rewound the scene and hit play in reverse. Damian Wolf, billionaire venture capitalist. Rumor had it he bought a failing tech company every time he got bored. And apparently, the green Lamborghini? His. Not Celeste's. Not even leased. Owned outright. He took the key fob with a silent nod and looked her up and down like he was evaluating a pair of knockoff heels. "I don't recall giving you permission to pose by my property," he said, voice low and precise. I was just," Celeste began, but Damien wasn't looking at her anymore. He turned to Sarah, who was still holding her son close, cheeks burning with humiliation. He looked at her the way you look at a person, not an incident. "Are you all right?" he asked. Sarah nodded wordlessly, though I could see her chin trembling. He took out his handkerchief, this crisp white square that somehow looked like it cost more than my entire wardrobe, and offered it to her. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she took it and dabbed her cheek, not saying a word. He turned back to Celeste. Apologize. It wasn't a request. What? She touched. My property. That I didn't give you permission to lean against, either. And you just assaulted a woman holding a child. So, unless you want to make headlines tomorrow for all the wrong reasons, I suggest you say you're sorry and leave. Celeste sputtered. A few people had stopped recording. Now they started again. Eventually, furious, flustered, cornered, she muttered something resembling an apology, flicked her hair, and stormed off, heels clicking like gunshots against marble. Damien turned back to Sarah, offered her and her son a place to sit inside, and said, "Let's get you a drink. Not because you need charity, because you deserve better than this." And that, my friends, is where the Rayall story begins. Because that wasn't the last time those three lives would cross. Not by a long shot. There's a difference between wealth and power. Celeste Moreau had the first, her last name stitched into luxury handbags and whispered in exclusive Paris salons. But the man who stepped forward that day, Damien Wolf, he had the second. And the second you saw him speak, you knew which one ruled the world. After Celeste slunk off, still fuming and dramatically pretending she hadn't just been publicly humiliated, Damien turned back to Sarah Nguyen. She looked like she was deciding whether to cry, flee, or disappear into the concrete. Her toddler clung to her, rubbing a tear-streaked face against her collar. Damien crouched. Yes, crouched, so he was eye level with the kid, like the billionaire wasn't wearing a suit tailored within an inch of its $12,000 life. "What's your name, little man?" he asked, voice low and calm. The boy sniffled. "Ben. That's a strong name. You know, Ben, I think your mom is stronger than most people I've ever met." Sarah flinched at that. I could tell. Compliments, especially ones that sounded genuine, probably weren't a regular part of her day. She started mumbling thanks, clearly trying to edge away and retreat before more eyes turned her way. But Damien wasn't done. "I'm parked in a loading space, and I've got a private lounge inside with some privacy, air conditioning, and juice boxes. You and Ben are welcome to sit and breathe for a moment. No obligation. Just a quieter place than this circus." He didn't touch her, didn't insist. Just stood and waited, like someone who understood trauma doesn't respond to pressure. Sarah hesitated for all of 10 seconds before nodding once. Quiet, hesitant, a survivor's nod. They walked together into the building, past the velvet ropes and curious stares. I trailed after them, pretending to check my phone while weaving into the lobby crowd. I know a story when it's unfolding in front of me, and this one wasn't over. Not by half. They entered a private elevator I didn't have access to, but I knew where it went. The Wolf Lounge. Top floor. Members only. I'd read about it in a Forbes spread once. A floating glass sanctuary built above the shopping complex, exclusively for Damien's meetings and retreats. And apparently, for spontaneous acts of justice. About 20 minutes passed before the three of them re-emerged. Sarah was holding a chilled water bottle, and her son had a chocolate smear across his chin and the kind of quiet that only comes after a cookie and a nap. Damien was on the phone, pacing ahead. I stayed just close enough to catch snippets as I accidentally browsed sunglasses near the lobby exit. You know, get comms on it fast. I want the footage before the media does. No, I don't care if she's a Moro. She laid hands on a civilian. I want legal on standby. Legal? Footage? He was taking it further than just a slap and go. And then, this part one still replay in my head. He paused his call, turned to Sarah, and said, "You're not getting on the bus, are you?" She blinked, caught off guard. I wasn't sure. I have to pick up a shift at 6. But I can't. Ben's too tired in. He reached into his coat and handed her something small and metallic. A valet token. Black SUV at stall A1. Already loaded with a car seat. My driver will take you anywhere you need. No strings, no favors owed. Just, less struggle today. She looked at it like it might electrocute her. I can't, Mr. Wolf. He held up a hand. Don't make this about pride. Make it about safety. You've had a hell of a day. Let someone with resources carry a bit of your burden, even if it's just for a few miles. That's when I knew this wasn't some PR stunt. Because Celeste was halfway to firing her publicist, and this guy was offering his chauffeur to a woman who couldn't afford valet. Sarah nodded again. That same small, survival numb nod. She picked up Ben, kissed his forehead, and whispered something I couldn't hear. As they headed toward the garage, Damien hung up the call and walked past me. He didn't even glance my way, but as he passed, I swear the air shifted. The scent of leather, cedar, and resolve. I felt like I was watching the setup to a reckoning. And Celeste? She had no idea what was coming. Turns out, I wasn't wrong. That night, Damien's team leaked the full security footage online. The slap, the scream, the smug entitlement of Celeste Moreau in high definition. By morning, hashtags were trending. Hashtag Slapgate. Hashtag WolfJustice. Hashtag Lamborghini Lesson. But the biggest trend? Hashtag Who Is She? Because while Celeste's reputation started a slow implosion, the internet fell in love with the quiet dignity of the woman who didn't fight back, who didn't scream or sue, who just took a hit and protected her son. And Damien? He was already 3 moves ahead. He wasn't done with Celeste. But more importantly, he wasn't done with Sarah Nguyen. It happened 3 days later. The world had moved on. Well, the internet had, anyway. Celeste Moreau's slap had been dissected, memed, parroted, and ultimately buried under the next trending scandal. But for Damien Wolf and Sarah Nguyen, the fallout was still unfolding, quietly, and far away from hashtags. I found out what happened next from a contact inside Wolf's corporate team, someone who owed me a favor and had a soft spot for underdog stories. Sarah had received an envelope hand-delivered to the modest motel where she and her son were staying. Inside was a formal invitation, written not by a PR team or an assistant, but by Damien Wolf himself. It was an offer, not a check, not a gift, a job, not charity, not pity, a chance. A new community initiative had just launched under Wolf's name, an early childhood literacy program paired with a mobile health clinic. He needed someone who understood struggle firsthand, someone who could help shape services for real families, not just on paper, but in practice. And Sarah? She had once worked as a teacher's aide before losing her home. She had credentials, empathy, and that rare, unteachable thing, lived experience. She met with Damien in the same lounge where he'd offered her water and silence. This time, she brought her voice. They talked for over 2 hours. She asked hard questions. He answered honestly. She said no to the salary. Too high, too fast, she said. Let me earn it. Damien didn't argue. She started the next Monday. I saw her again once, maybe a month later. She was stepping out of a black SUV in front of the community center where the new program had launched. Her son, Ben, held her hand and a picture book in the other. She wore a new coat. Still simple. Still her. But she walked with a different kind of weight. Not the burden of survival. The steadiness of purpose. I nodded to her from across the street. She saw me. Smiled. Nodded back. That was all. As for Celeste, last I heard, she released a half-hearted apology, lost a few brand deals, and moved to Europe for a wellness reset. But the real story didn't end with her downfall. It ended with a woman the world had tried to ignore, standing taller, and a man the world feared, choosing to see her. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one moment of being seen.